morning and welcome to Jew in the City Speaks with your host, Allison Josephs, also known as Jew in the City. I've gotten to meet a lot of great people running this organization. We feature a lot of Kiddush Hashem stories here. Today's story is no different, and it's actually last week's story was part 2. Today we're actually doing part 1. We're kind of going out of order, but that's sometimes how movies go. This is real life. Last week, we spoke to an amazing woman named Dr. Shani Verschalizer. Today, we're speaking to her husband, Eli Verschalizer. These are people that saw problems in the community, and instead of, kind of worrying about it or putting them out of their mind, they got right in there and they started to seek solutions and create solutions and change lives. And through our work at Project Makom, sort of seeing the underbelly of the Orthodox world, the challenges, some of the systematic problems, these topics of different forms of abuse and trauma and addiction have come very close to my life now and the work that we're doing. We really can't speak about the good unless we're willing to face the challenges. And ultimately, as I said in the last week's episode, when we face our challenges head on, when we're brave enough to speak about them, when we're brave enough to confront them, that in itself is a Kiddush Hashem. So with that intro, I'm delighted to invite our guest today, Eli Verschalizer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So if you could tell us, as the chairman and co-founder of Our Place, what is your story? Where did you come from, and how did you get involved in work around kids at risk and addiction?
So I consider myself an Our Place member, and I think I always will be. And I started. I grew up in Lakewood, New Jersey. I guess one of the first few hundred families that grew up there, and I had some trouble in school growing up. And in those days, they probably didn't understand children as well as a lot of people do today, fortunately. And I had some trouble. I didn't attend a lot of school, left my house at a young age, ended up going from school to school until about the age of 14 or so, and ended up in Israel at the age of about 16, and basically was a street kid throughout my teen years. In my 20s, I had a lot of people that lived by my house, and about 1996, 97, 98, numerous individuals that lived at my house overdosed and passed away. And at that time, I decided that I need to start getting into this field and figuring out what to do for this population.
So what was the timeline of feeling motivated, like you had to make a difference, to actually opening up the doors to Our Place? When people are listening, I always want to sort of spell out kind of what are the concrete details of going from idea to execution? How do you come about to do that?
So I guess teens, lots of teens, like to sit and ponder about the world or what's going on, or maybe when they're getting high specifically, and they just like to sit and talk. And I guess I always had that different type of insights and talking to the people around me. And I've always had that personality of trying to figure out a problem. And that being said, when people would get into these states of mind of depression or what's life about, I would be able to sit and talk for hours with them. And from there, when individuals started overdosing, I realized this is really a problem, and discussed it with others that were in the field. And a few of us got together and opened up a place where kids could just come and hang out and be themselves.
So what year was this, and sort of what was the initial Our Place, I guess, like space like what did you offer? How many people did you attract?
So initially, Moshe Binnikel V'Shalom came up with an idea. We should open up this location right in smack in the middle of Brooklyn and Flatbush on Avenue M and East 19th. And he was looking to put together the money to buy equipment for it, pool tables. We have a full gym there, and other things that are at this location, which we opened in 1998. So I put together the money for the gym equipment at the time. We opened the doors and slowly started attracting the kids in the streets that we now have thousands and thousands and thousands of let's call them alumni.
Amazing. What was the community response when you opened this up? What were the good feedback you got? What did the naysayers say?
Community response never stops. Even today, there are community responses, but unfortunately, it's not the community that we all know are the true and amazing community. So the community response at that time was go somewhere else. This is not something that we want in our community. You're just going to ruin children and give them a place to get worse. And Rabbanim and people with money all came around and said, get out of here.
Wow. But things have changed. Things have gotten better, right? I mean, we've gotten to a point now where we're getting better at talking about issues. We're getting better at facing shame and facing problems in the community. So when, why, how did things start to shift for the better?
So it took, I would say, a good 10 years, maybe 12 years, till about 2010, where at that point, more organizations started existing and more individuals started opening up their own minds and their own homes and their own schools. And it took a lot of work. It took us a good solid 10 years to just finally get people to go public with the work that they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I mean, today we are by far the largest organization in this field. Mm-hmm. Year to year, we have 7 locations. We have different divisions. Year over year, from June through June this past year, we had over 1,800 and some odd. I think it was about 1856 guys and girls come through the organization. That's new guys and girls.
Wow.
About the ones that have been there from the years before. And it's a big number. And it's just growing and growing. And we actually deal with the individuals, with the guys, with the girls, in all different age groups. And that's what we do.
So take us through some of the particulars here. What age groups are you serving, and what programs do you offer specifically for those age groups?
We have different divisions. We have Our Place, which is, we have an Our Place drop-in youth center for boys. And then we have an Our Place drop-in youth center for girls.
11? Like what's the youngest age? What's the oldest age for Our Place?
So unfortunately, it starts at a very young age today, 9th grade, 8th grade, so 13, wow. 12, 13. We can't really officially take in anybody that's under the age of 16. So, so I guess in public, I won't tell anyone how many underage kids, unfortunately, are there. But suffice it to say, there are a lot of 8th and 9th graders on the streets. Dozens and dozens and dozens. And if they're on the streets, then we're big believers that we should give them everything that they want in a safe environment versus in a non-safe environment.
So what are they getting when they come to the center?
So in the Boys Our Place drop-in center, you have it's about 5,000 square feet. It has this underground feeling to it. It actually is underground. And it has, one side of it has a few pool tables, ping pong table, basketball hoops to shoot, 6 or 7 large screen TVs on one side, which are for and all the different video games, the Wii, the Xbox, anything you could imagine. The back area has a 100-inch a big TV, huge TV, which with room for about 15, 20 to watch a game or watch a movie. One corner on one end has clothing, so people don't have clothing, they could come take a pair of pants, shirt, whatever they would want. When you walk in initially, there's a smoking room, which also has a large TV and a special system for the air quality, and they have hookahs in there. And then you have a dining room area with a few tables and hot meals. Mm-hmm. Hot meals are something that are for some reason, it's not some reason, but a lot of these kids, this is their only place where they get their hot meal. And then we have a full-size gym, a pretty big gym, with every type of exercise machine we could imagine. Then we have a soundproof music room in the back, which has every type of instrument. We have a studio. That soundproof music room has also an area for which has a studio, so people could learn how to. We have photography, expensive photography equipment. We have a different. We have another room that has computer equipment. Recently, they've been teaching editing classes and that type of technology. We have it's a pretty
pretty state-of-the-art place. So what is this center staffed with social workers, mentors? Like what type of staffing do you have to undertake all of these different activities and manage the kids that come in?
So basically the center is staffed with, so each center has like a someone that's in charge of the whole center as a whole. It has a head of mental health and numerous mental health professionals. It also has someone that's an event slash basically an event coordinator or a projects coordinator that will come up with new ideas and new projects to do and continuously keep it, whether it's in the facility or doing trips out of the facility. And basically each center is staffed the same way. So you can have a lot of staff, part volunteer, part paid, to a lot of kids. Each center has somewhere between 50 and 75 kids a night. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. So tell us, what is pushing kids onto the street? Because when I think about, the hot meal at home, that's mom there, that's providing, that's generally most, if I'm going to be old fashioned like that, but what is missing? What is pushing these kids onto the street that they don't have a place to be? They don't have food to eat. Is it poverty, trauma? Like where does it begin? What's the patterns that you're seeing?
So there is no question that 100% of the 18 to 19,000 kids and young adults that came through the organization in the last 20 plus years have had severe trauma. There's no question about that. That's 100%. Specifically, the girls' side have upwards of 90% sexual abuse trauma, and the boys' side have upwards of 60% sexual abuse trauma. And this is documented. It could be a lot more. This is what we have documented. The other trauma comes from the system, the yeshiva world, the school system, the home system, learning disabilities. it's the trauma that children have by unfortunately growing up in an environment that they're misunderstood. The system is not for them. The system, the box has the square is only for a certain amount of a certain percentage of the children.
So let's talk about generational, I guess, phenomenons. Was this a problem in, the previous generation, the generation before that? Is there something new that we're seeing in this generation? And if something changed, what is it?
It's always been a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been a problem. People will argue it's only 2%. It's a lot more. People will say it's only 10%. Every Yiddish neshama, every Jewish soul is there's no amount of money that could be that we could equate with any individual's life. And we're talking about thousands and thousands, tens and tens of thousands of individuals and children and adults, young adults, whether they make it, whether they don't. And unfortunately for us, the Jewish population, the religious population specifically, has grown to become an amazing a movement and an amazing sect within Judaism. Unfortunately, the percentage is still there, whether it's more or less, but we're still talking about tens of thousands of people. And the focus for most people are the majority, not the minority. So we end up with this problem, and it's a generational problem. It certainly is.
So obviously every community in the world has people that slip through the cracks and people that go through trauma or sex abuse. Do you have any sense of how the numbers in the Orthodox community compare to other populations? Are we doing better in some ways, worse in some ways, comparable?
It's a good question. I don't really look to compare between communities and Jewish, non-Jewish, religious, non-religious. The sexual abuse problem in the world is there are numbers like 1 in 4 girls up to the age of 18 will have some sort of sexual abuse trauma, and there are numbers like 1 in 6 boys will have that in the world. Whether or not it's better in the Jewish community, I'm not sure. It's hard to know, and we're still, even though we've been keeping track of numbers in the last, I'd say, about 10 years in that specific side of things, sexual abuse. It's difficult to know whether it's worse or not. There are certainly pockets within the frum religious Jewish community that it's a disaster, a real disaster. Mm-hmm. The sexual abuse is something that we've tried to begin to tackle since 2012 and 13. My wife, as you know, has that organization, Magenu. And it's still, we're still about 10 years away, I believe, or maybe 5 years away from really getting a handle on it. Unfortunately, the COVID just really threw a lot of things back, and there were a lot of other things that people believe are more important to deal with. I think that people don't realize the importance of this, and there are really just simple things that need to be added to the education and the system and the communication and the skills of both parents and all adults that take care of children in order to bring those numbers significantly down, significantly. Mm-hmm. But that will take the attention of people, and it has to be built into their lives. It's something like that needs to, it's part of the way they speak to their children. It's part of the way, I shouldn't say they, it's part of the way we speak to our children. And that will significantly reduce sexual abuse and other abuses and trauma as a whole. And, but we'll get there, The problem is the problem is a good problem. The problem is that we're growing at a rapid rate. Just look at the demographics, look at the real estate, and look at the amount of people in the schools. There aren't enough schools. So all the good problems have this big spillover effect, which we may not have enough people like you to deal with it. You know, we need this. We need more people to stand up and at least support and take the initiative and get involved in this.
For sure, and we think a lot about the prevention side because ultimately the job of a nonprofit is to shut down one day. You wanna be able to go out of business. So the question is, how do you go to the beginning of the story to figure out why people keep getting sent to your organization? Take us through, what does the healing process look like at Our Place? How does maybe your average kid come in? What is sort of the mechanism through the programming? And then maybe, give us some examples of what a success story looks like, if any come to mind, of sort of beginning, middle, end.
There are thousands and thousands and thousands of success stories. The numbers are astounding. At one point in time, we had an over an 80% success rate. And when I say success rate, for us, success is that an individual goes back to a normal community life, and that's what we feel is what we need to do in order to be successful. So it's not like any specific part of someone's life that we don't deal with. So as an example, we have Our Place, the drop-in centers, which are for, I would say, up to ages 22, 23. You have some stragglers, unfortunately, that are still there at 28. So that's the first part. The second part, which is run independent of the first division, is a division called the living room. Many people are not aware or familiar that the living room is even affiliated or associated with Our Place. It is. It's all in our budget, and it's all one organization. We have one Dr. Tricia Tia, who is the head of all the mental health for the entire organization, and underneath her, she has different mental health professionals that run each division, and then each location has its own mental health professional running that location, with numerous mental health underneath them. So the living room is a massive organization. It's a fascinating organization. And it was born in 2008, I believe. And it actually came out of an idea that started that in 2005 or 2004. An individual came over to me one day and said, "Hey, Ellie, we have to have a location for guys and girls that come out of rehab. We're getting them into the rehab, but they're coming out relapsing," which is, one of the, it's not an unknown that excuse me, that individuals come out of rehab and have a tremendous relapse rate. So I said, "Okay, great. What do you want to do?" He said, "I want to open up a location more upscale than the Our Place youth centers, where we could just have a place to hang out." I'm like, "Okay, and what do you want there?" He says, "1 pool table, 3 computers, 2 offices for therapy, and tables, chairs, food. That's all." I said, "Okay, done. Find a location and we'll do it." And that place opened, I believe it was 2005 or 2006 by the time we got it open, and it was called Judah's Club. And Judah Friedman, who now lives in California, is still in this field, I believe, successfully ran that for a couple of years. And then he decided to move on to California. And that concept and that place became what is now known as the living room. The living room has many locations in the 5 towns in Brooklyn and Muncie and Lakewood, shortly in all over in Queens. It has many locations. And the living room is basically for 18 to 80. So you can walk into a living room and it has a 12-step program / whole life therapy group family in each location every night that it's in session. And these are individuals with tattoos, nose rings, and earrings, and piercings, and Hasidic with beards and payas, or just any type of individual would be at any of these locations at any given time. And together they are staying sober and staying mentally healthy. And that's what the living room does. It's it has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of members, active members, and it's a very big, powerful organization. That is the second part to what I'm considering a whole life therapy
Journey. Yeah.
journey. We also opened up a location in Muncie, another location that's called Our Village, and a new division called Our Village, which currently has one house, which is full. It's a sober living house. It's a non-for-profits division, obviously, of Our Place, and it's the only non-for-profit sober living house in this country. We opened initially for boys. It has 12, the ability to facilitate 12 individuals at a time. It's full at the moment, and now we're in the midst of looking to open another house for girls. Our village the goal is to have 5 houses with a community center, and it's a whole topic on its own. But that's basically for a transition between rehab and going back to regular life. So that's a step in between. These are the different part. These are the different parts to our organization, different divisions.
Amazing.
And hopefully,
Yeah, sorry.
collectively, it's an entire journey of keeping somebody from overdosing and dying, which unfortunately I've personally buried over 38 guys and girls in Melville. I mean, just yesterday, Shani told me about one of her friends that overdosed. These are regular kids that, they could be 40 or they could be 18 or 16. It could be a funeral in the middle of the night, in the middle of the rain with barely 10 people, a minyan for the burial, or 4,000 people, and they're claiming that the person choked. So this is truly still a big issue and a big and very sad situation, but where we keep on going and we keep on trying to do the work.
We're just about out of time. This is all fascinating and terrifying. How can our listeners get more information? Give us a website and some action item. What can they do to get involved or be helpful in this process of fighting this battle that you're fighting?
So our website is ourplaceny.org. We action items are if you're a child caretaker, put your phone down and listen. You might not be hearing what your child is trying to say to you, and just love them. That's the bottom line. Unconditional love, and that's our secret. There's everybody involved in this organization, and there are hundreds of paid and volunteer individuals. Everybody that's involved in the organization has one thing in common. They're 100% selfless, and 100% all they want to do is love the individual that they're dealing with. And that's what the people are missing, and that's what trauma ends up doing to individuals, and that's the solution. And that's what people should do.
I mean, this is you're speaking our Torah too. This is what we discovered as well.
Yeah, so I just to end off, I actually have a fascinating story from Chaim Kanievsky, who's one of the big adolim in Israel today, and he said, "This is today's machla. This is today's sickness of our generation," and he said to an individual who had this trouble with his child, he said, "What you should do is go to your neighbor or down the block and see which child in your neighborhood has the same issue, and you just love that child, and your neighbor will love your child, and ultimately that will cure this issue." So we're trying to do the job of what many parents and many caretakers should be doing, and hopefully everyone is there to take care of their own and continue to help each other so we can all take care of our own.
I mean, thank you so much for your incredible work, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for listening. You can catch us same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.